this week's episode. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video if you can. Any kind of assistance with that will help. We're obviously trying to grow the podcast, and we've seen some pretty good engagement recently, so let's just try and keep that going. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the podcast platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that is appreciated. All right, let's wrap up the transfer segment then. Let's go into the game week 2 previews. As we talked about earlier, United travelling down to Brighton to the Amex to take on Hertzela, or whatever his name is, that young coach that they've got. Who
man's got Phil Foden's haircut.
Brighton top of the...
My guy.
Yeah, his haircuts are crazy. When I saw his first interview, I was like, "Wow, what is going on with this Barnet?" But yeah, he's got them top of the table, so big them up. Playing really nice football, battered Everton. Like I said, Minte looked really good. Matoma came back to life, scored a decent goal. Danny Welbeck as well, decent goal. Adingra, they've got players, man. So yeah, it won't be easy. And then you've got Aston Villa versus Arsenal, which I think Brighton United is the early kickoff on Saturday. Villa Arsenal is a late kickoff on Saturday. And yeah, it's the Unai Emery good evening derby. Villa also getting a win away at West Ham. John Duran with a decent goal to get the win for them. Amadou Onana, my prediction for signing of the season, scored a really good header as well. So it's going to be a tough game. Let's start with the Brighton Man United game then, John. So I'll kick off with the predictions on this bit. I think we're going to win, but I would not be shocked if we lost. I'm going to go win just because I feel like our defence looks a bit tighter. Everton looked so leaky. So as well as Brighton played, I think Everton were absolutely shit, to be perfectly honest. And no surprise there because we basically said that about them all season last season. So I think it's a 50-50 as to, Brighton playing well and Everton playing poorly. So hopefully with a bit of a stronger defence, we can get the win. But I think it's going to be a really tight game, and Brighton look like they play decent football. The only thing I will also say is they've got a lot of young players. So I don't believe their young players are going to be able to play so consistently. I know they've got the Welbecks and the Dunks, but if you look at the rest of their team, it's a really young first team and a young squad. So I think we're going to get the win, and I think we'll win the game 2-1. But I think it'll be really tight, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if we lost, because first away game going to the Amex is not easy. So I think a lot of people have downplayed what Brighton are going to be because of this new coach. They've got enough good players that I think they'll be comfortably in mid-table, and they'll get some big scalps. I'm just hoping it's not going to be us. So yeah, I'm going to go Brighton 1, Man United 2. What's your prediction on that game?
I'm going to go for Brighton win, and I think it will be 2-1 the other way. And the only reason I say that is because I agree with you on the young players thing, but I think we also have to remember new manager bounce, man. And that in combination with the fact that young players can be fearless, playing up against a Man United that's somewhat susceptible to losing, makes for a really good game, and it makes for a lot of bravery from the young players. And I think Man United were good in the first game, but they probably weren't convincing enough for me to think they're going to go and be able to beat Brighton. And I agree with you. I think Brighton aren't going to be quite as good or quite as bad as everybody thinks now. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were before necessarily, but I also don't think they're going to be horrible, because I think Hertzela doesn't look like he's a terrible manager. I think he's going to be still doing a lot of similar things that the previous managers were doing. And I think they still got a really good squad. Not full of a lot of names. It's not some crazy squad like Chelsea or someone else like that, but it's a pretty good team, and you reeled off a lot of names that are good players. So I'm just going to go for 2-1 to Brighton. I think it could also be a United win too. I think it's a harder game to call, but I'm just going to go for Brighton because I would like to get ahead of you in the prediction table even further.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you are ahead of me still, right? We have to cover that after this.
Yeah.
Of these predictions, obviously, we'll give a recap of what we think the scores will be. But yeah, all right. I'm not mad at that. I think Brighton are a good team, but I really think this is a very difficult game to call. Like, I don't think you could get too much from both of our first games. But yeah, it'll be at least I think it'll be a good game to watch.
Yeah.
I think it'll be probably more open and more chances created than our game against Fulham Anyway, let's put it that way.
Agreed.
All right, so I'm going 2-1 Brighton, 2-1 Man United. You're going 2-1 Brighton. All right, let's go into Aston Villa Arsenal. Ooh, talk about difficult first away days. This one stinks. The Premier League supercomputer has not been kind to you. Villa look decent, man, and I feel like West Ham are going to be a decent team, and I feel like they deserve to win that game. So yeah, I think it's going to be really tricky. But let's get into your prediction first on this one then. So how do you think the game's going to go, and who do you think is going to win?
I'm going 3-1 Arsenal, and I think it's going to be a hard game. And I think the 3-1 that I'm predicting is not going to reflect the actual game itself. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. But I think we're going to get a couple of early goals. We'll start relatively quick, catch them off guard. They'll kind of climb back into the game, maybe get an equaliser just around half-time or just after half-time, and then we'll get like a late jammy goal against play, and that will kind of end the game. But I think I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal, and I think it will be a tight game, though, and that will be a flattering result for us.
Yeah, I don't know where you're seeing that. I mean, I know Arsenal are good away, and I know these games have had some crazy results. I know they beat you there last season, but the season before, I think, what was it, 5-3 or 4-3 or something you guys won with a late Jorginho. Well, I know it was counted as an own goal, but it bounced back off a Jorginho thunderbolt. So they can be high scoring ones, but I don't know. I think this game, I don't know if I can see you guys winning it. I can see a draw, and I can see a tight Villa win, but I don't know what to go for.
Cool, mate.
I think I'm going to go for a draw. So I think I'm going to go for a Desmond. I think it's going to be 2-2. I think there'll be lots of chances. Villa will go for it. I think you guys will go for it. I think away you guys tend to be a bit more open and get some good results away. But I think Ollie Watkins is a bit of a kryptonite for some of our top defenders. He's a kryptonite for Van Dijk. He was difficult for you guys to defend last season. He's been difficult for us to defend at United as well. I feel like this will be the game where he comes back into it properly, because he was quite quiet against West Ham, wasn't he? I don't think he had his greatest game.
Early as well.
Yeah, he came off quite early. So if he plays, I think he's going to cause you guys some problems. But you know what? Villa, I don't think they'll be as good as last season, but I feel like still they're going to be a team, that are going to be able to get a scalp and a big victory at home against the big teams. And I feel like there's just so many subplots and storylines with Aston Villa Arsenal. I feel like it's never a straightforward game. So I'm going to go for 2-2. But yeah, I would hope you guys get the win, because I feel like it will, shut certain people up who are being unnecessarily negative about certain things about Arsenal. But I feel like Emery's got somewhat of a hoodoo on you guys. At least last season he did. So I'm going to go for 2-2. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this coming week of fixtures for both of us. I think we've both got really interesting games. I think they'll be much more open, much more interesting than, all respect to Fulham and Wolves, but they're not two teams that play the most beautiful football and play the most expansive football. Whereas Brighton and Villa, on the other hand, they go for it. So I think it's going to be a fun week of Premier League football. Now let's do a quick update on the prediction table between the two of us. So last week I went for Man U 3-1 Fulham. You went for 2-0, right? I went for Arsenal 3-0 Wolves. You went for Arsenal 2-0 Wolves. Is that right? I believe that's what you went. You went for 2-2-0s. Yeah. I'm already regretting doing this season. So I've got I've got 1 point for Fulham and 1 point for Arsenal. So that puts me on 3 points now. You've got 1 point for Fulham and 3 points for Wolves. So that puts you on 6. So you're slapping me up 6-2 at the moment. So this is fun.
Come on.
Let's hope I can pull it back with these results. I mean, we've gone pretty different results this time. So it's going to be a bit of a different table next week when we check the scores, because obviously last week we both went for wins for both of our teams, different score lines, and this time I think all 4 of our results are different. So yeah, it's going to be fun to dig into the pod next week, because I'm hoping I've pulled it back. But looking at how my FPL went this week, I've started off at the top of the table and somehow managed to drift down to mid-table, so it's not looking good for me. But anyway, yeah, we'll wrap up the pod here, Johns. Good episode as usual. Hopefully, both of our teams can get wins in these two big games, and we can go into some pretty crunch games after that with 6 points on the board.